Nice to see you here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear her?
Okay.
Okay, great. So there are a lot of questions we have for you, but the ones we're going to ask in public
Right.
are following here.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. So when did you come to the United States and what prompted you to do that?
Well, I got married to an American, and my husband was on a job assignment in Germany. And so, we met actually by my mother's house. She used to rent out an apartment. So, but if we move on, my immigration was fairly easy, so to speak. However, before I applied for, come to the States, I had to go to Frankfurt, the embassy, and I was examined doctor to see if I was healthy. And for one thing, at that time, they were concerned about, this disease or whatever. And if I just quickly look what's the immigrants today, even in their home country, what if they come here and they don't have the paperwork, which most of them probably don't. So when basically the immigration itself was easy for me. However, for the first 10 years, I had to register with the green card. I had a green card. So every January, you get this form, you fill it out, and you return it to the post service. And the other thing I found out, I could not hold any government job, not even work at the post office at that time. By nowadays, it has changed, I'm sure. So you had to be a citizen of, of the States.
Wow, that's fascinating. So then if you couldn't hold, what kind of work did you do?
No work. I finished my education. My education from Germany was quite different. So I went to college. Well, first, I graduated from Evelyn High School, and then I went to the Answer College later on, UC, to get my degrees. So I did work also preschool, first in a local nursery school and then at the Answer College at the Child Development Center. So that was my work after I graduated. But we were here only about 3 months, and we visited a winery, and we talked about wine and so forth. And I was offered a job to work for them as hostess because I knew quite a bit about wine because some of my relatives have wineries in Germany.
Oh, wow.
So when I talk, I knew quite a bit of it. So I was, but that would have been over in Livermore. That doesn't work. It was too far to go. So if I look, the most difficult was the language. My English was marginal because my husband was very interested in learning German. So he had about 3 semesters of German and even translated some technical stuff. So when I came here, I had only about 1 year of English, British English. So there were many things I had to learn, and number one, even go to the grocery store. For quite a few months, I had a very good friend. She came with me and introduced me to some of the items. I mean, fresh produce that was known, but many, many other things. And I was very intimidated by the traffic. I wouldn't drive here. I had my driver's license from Germany, but it took me a long time, and I had a problem making left turns, so I would go several blocks to come in with a light from the right. So, you know, things like that. And so I often, or I wonder, compared to the immigrants we have coming and waiting to come for years, even from their home country, if they didn't have any paperwork from there, and then coming here. This is why we have all these court cases. So that's what makes me wonder. And of course, each country, I took an immigration class a few years ago, and each country has a quota. Mm-hmm. And of course, the one for anyone from Mexico or South America, the quota is, I mean, they would have to take years to come legally on their quotas. And also the big difference is if your husband works here, even if he's German or French, the wife usually can come with them if it's temporarily. So there are, you know, quite some of those rules yeah.
So we talked a little bit about how it was when you came after World War II. Were you accepted?
Well, I haven't been asked very often, but I knew about the concentration camps, and you know, that time in Germany. Now, I have to remember I was 10 years old when the war ended. So number one, I lived about 500 kilometers from one of the concentration camps. And if you were not close by, you just didn't know. And communication, there was only one radio station that broadcast, you know, Hitler screaming. But, so I have been asked what I knew, and I said basically nothing until after the war. And even if your family might have known about it, you just keep quiet, or you know, they come and take you. So that's one question I often had, what I knew, and so my answer is age has something to do with it, and not living near. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that I do not feel very, should I say, I don't feel guilty, personally. I mean, I was too young, there's anything I couldn't do. But naturally, there's one thing you can forgive, but you don't have to forget. So even, you know, today, older generations and young people in Germany really, as they got to know the history, they really have more of a guilt feelings.
Thank you.
And only here, I had only one occasion. I was teaching in Palo Alto at the preschool, and the parents were all people at the Stanford. So anywhere there was this one Jewish couple, and a couple of their children were in the preschool, and the mother told the director of the school they would prefer if I would not get involved with their children. So sort of. So, but to me, that was the only feeling where I felt, well, that's it. You are German, and every German, maybe at all ages, that people just think that it's a situation that will always be there.
Thank you, Christel.
Well, when it comes to language, one brief thing, with my English not being very good and the pronunciation. So one day I went shopping to Macy's and I wanted to buy sheets, bed sheets. So I asked the salesperson, where do I find the shits? I mean, language often can be very kind. I never forget, she looked at me kind of strange at first. Well, anyway, going back, my immigration was easy. And I cannot imagine people nowadays waiting by the thousands to come. And I don't know how we solved that problem.
Yeah, that we'll discuss that later. I was wondering, I know that when you came to the United States, you also traveled around the United States. You lived in my favorite place, southern New Mexico.
I really love, specific place. I love Santa Fe, New Mexico. My late husband worked at White Sands, Rhythm Range, so for 12 years. So I got to visit down there a lot. And what impressed me, looking back, after having seen Oppenheimer, now on one of my visits with my husband, we like to drive out in the desert and explore. He took me to the spot where Oppenheimer's, first atomic bomb was taken off. And at that time, it didn't, yes, that was taking place, but actually I haven't seen the movie and actually go thinking, having been there, it was kind of chilling to me to think about that. So that's just briefly my stuff. I hope I didn't go on too long.
So I wanted to ask you about your religious upbringing.
Pardon?
Your religious upbringing. Were you brought up in the faith, and did you bring that over?
It was more or less Lutheran.
More or less.
Well, yeah, we had different ministers, but in Germany it's called the Protestant Germany of Germany. So in some areas it's more Reformed Lutheran, and some it's just a little different. We baptize babies. The earlier the better, because by being baptized, you become a member of that religion, like Protestant. Mm-hmm. At that time, we had only Protestant and Catholic. So it becomes very important that you be a member of certain churches. And that has to do because later on you pay taxes to the church. It's a percentage of your income tax. And so it's very important as far as the total church business goes, that you get baptized.
And so how did you find Ladera?
Pardon?
How did you find Ladera? How did you find your way over to this church?
Oh, I went to the Congregational Church in Sunnyvale for quite a number of years, and then I had some disagreement, and I knew a couple of people who were at this church at the time, and so I came and I felt welcome. Number one was, you probably know Iris Harrell, and the Brocks. So that I knew someone here that helped. For me, it was just more comforting than a total strange thing. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this up? Do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
Well, no, I feel welcome here, and I like, just like it here. I like the music, and for all, yes. And I've one thing found out, I've been finding that congregational churches have a certain architecture. The Sunnyvale one is similar, and all this type of A-frame. And the one in Santa Cruz, which I'm familiar with, is also this what I call style. So, yeah. So that's it.
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time.
Okay.